Okay, so now that the pedals and the steering's in, it's time to get the shifter mounted. So the idea is it's gonna sit roughly like that in here. So I gotta come up with a plan to kind of figure out how to mount this thing, but the shifter is pretty hilarious because not one of the mounting points are on the same plane. They're all slightly different. Obviously, plastic, the Chrysler engineers decided they could do whatever they felt like. So it's a little bit on the wonky side. And the brake pedal showed up, and it also has the big curve in it, which I guess shouldn't be surprising, but it is much simpler and doesn't have the spring, doesn't have the big motor on it to do the power pedals. So I'll probably swap this out once I figure out how to straighten it out into the position it needs to go. But it's not pressing right now. Right now I'm going to try to get the shifter in, and that'll be the last of the stuff besides the gauges, which I have a plan for that, which I'll show you later what that is, but that's a little bit more involved. So first we need to figure this out. Yep, time to come up with a plan. Something figured out now. Basically, this is the shifter from the 300. So what I'm doing right now is I basically got some washers stacked up, and what I'm gonna do is weld this bolt to the plate, and then I'm gonna cut this at the right height and basically mark it off and weld it to the plate as well. So that will give me my height. Kind of already tacked on the back one here. So I'm gonna cut this plate down to this width, and then I'm gonna basically create a little box for the shifter to sit on, and then I'll weld that into the floor of the truck so that I have a place to mount my shifter. Well, we have a bracket that I came up with for mounting the shifter. It seems like a lot of work to mount the shifter, but with the way the shifter is designed, not being flat, I kind of had to make up a bunch of stuff. So these two holes here will be mounting to the subframe of the floor. This one goes through the floor, and I'll mount a capture nut on the other side, captive nut I guess, on the other side when I flip the cab over. But this allows the shifter to sit fairly flat. Nothing else to go on. Okay, there it is sitting in the actual bracket, and then this basically sits like that. So there's some square tube that runs through the subframe of the floor here that I'm gonna bolt to, and then just one nut through the bottom, or bolt through the bottom. So allows that to sit nicely. Next up is the gauges, which I gotta cut the dash again and take out the retro air and create a new bracket. Yay, more brackets. I've been trying to figure out my brake pedal. I figured I'd have to get back to this and finish it up. So the old brake pedal used to kind of, I don't know if I can show it here, used to jut over like this with the pedal underneath here. So I cut it off. The plan is to straighten it out, but if I put that back on, you can see I basically have no pedal left. So staring at this thing, it looks like it has a hook the other way. So I'm thinking if I flip it over, mount it like that, brings my pedal back up to kind of where it needs to be. So I'm thinking, it's hard for me to hold and show you. So I'm thinking something like along those lines is what, and then that should give me lots of actual pedal movement to go up and down. So I have to hack off a couple inches of this, tack it onto here, The good thing is this is the power pedal, so if this screws up, I still have a backup pedal that I ordered. So I figured I'm gonna play around with this one and get it working. I might just stick with this pedal and just gut the power stuff off of it and then keep the other one for a future project. But right now I think that's gonna be the plan. So I'm gonna flip this over and tack that onto there, figure out where this is gonna land, and then hack it off and tack it onto there and try it out. So first thing, I need to straighten that out a little bit more. That's the plan for now. We'll see how it works out. Yeah. Well, I managed to start on the gauges today. I decided to take a little break from the brakes. I still got them mocked up, but I think I'm gonna wait till my master cylinder arrives in order to figure out exactly where that fits. I think it'll be better to kind of know where it gets held out by the master cylinder to see how that all works before I commit to that. So I decided to jump on the gauges. So I had to cut out this little support for the dash, and I'm gonna replace it with this bracket I made up. And this bracket basically lets this sit inside. So I'll bolt to the dash, and that'll bolt to that support bracket in there. And then I'm going to basically wrap the outside of the gauges with the same steel and create little tabs so I can mount it. And that'll all be welded to this thing that gets bolted in. So that's the progress I made so far on that. I need to add another little tab so I can bolt that to the main support in the middle. And then I need to cut more parts of the dash apart, which I'm not looking forward to, but it needs to get done. See, this almost fits like perfectly there. Like the old gauges are almost big enough, but not quite. So some cutting has to be done. So that's next on the list. Okay, so now I made myself a little, I guess, buck to form the piece to go around the gauges. So I basically just cut out a piece of plywood to the shape of the gauges and forced a chunk of metal around with some clamps, and got a quick weld on it right now so that I can take it off, and then I'll weld it all up and grind it down, make sure it all fits. But it's all kind of set up to go. And then this is the bracket I showed you earlier, so that will fit like that and hold on to the gauges, and then I'll make some tabs on this to basically grab the edge of the gauge cluster. So that should allow me to mount my gauges up and look pretty all right. Out in the dash finally, and actually it's gonna work out better than I thought. The actual gauge cluster fits really nicely against this piece of the dash that's left, so I kind of cut out the bottom so that the bracket can stay, but these pieces, you see, I just drilled holes through, so I'm just gonna mount it to that. I spent a bunch of time making this ring to go around to kind of mount the gauges, but I think this is going to end up working out okay. So I'm going to fill in this bottom section here with some metal so I can bolt the bottom in, but I think that's where it's going to live. Now I have to deal with these hoods because when I sit in the seat, you can't actually even see the gauges properly. So the plan is to cut those off, so we'll figure out how we're going to do that. But yeah, some good progress. I think it's going to look good. Okay, so this is the gauge cluster that I plan to modify. I'm really hoping this works out because looking the part up online, it's about 400 bucks for the cluster. So let's hope this works. So after a bunch of dinking around, I managed to get the cover off. There's these tabs all the way around. Looking online, the trick is to jam a little bit of cardboard in as you go so you can wiggle it off, because there's like 6 or 8 of them all the way around. So once that comes off, I plan to take this and basically make that flush. So I'm going to cut that down so that the hoods aren't blocking my view when I'm sitting in the driver's seat. So that means I also have to cut this, which also pops off. So I managed to find and pick up a 5-inch chrome ring and acrylic. So this will go on top here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a flush set of gauges that I'll be able to read from the driver's seat, and I won't be blocked by all this extra hood and stuff. So that's the idea. So I'm going to cut along the seam here, and then I'll glue it all back together once I remove that material. So that's the plan. Let's see how this works out. If not, I guess I'm spending 400 bucks for another set of gauges, and then I'm not sure what I'll do after that, but what could go wrong? Let's find out. So with a bunch of experimentation here, I have managed to cut the hood off of one side. So I basically just measured up and marked. I left a little bit more than I thought I was going to leave. I think it looks better with a little bit of a lip, so that was my plan. So I cut and just used the Dremel tool. So then there's the inner chunk that I cut down as well. So this is the 5-inch chrome ring and acrylic I bought to kind of fill in, but my issue is this here fits on, and this is too small to cover the cut edge. So the look doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great. So I think the new plan is to keep the 5-inch chrome ring and just kind of set it in. And this is the original chrome ring with all the tabs buzzed off it. So I think I'm going to glue it back on, and then I'll basically have like a double chrome ring. So these ones from the original gauges are kind of like a weird shape, but they can be pushed back into the around. So I'll glue that or epoxy that back on, and then I'll end up with basically a trimmed down set of gauges that are all sealed up. So now I just got to repeat on the other side. So that's the plan now. So let's see how this turns out. Keep hacking away, and who knows? Alright, so there is the gauges all cut down and put back together and hung up for now. So now I can actually see them when I'm sitting in the driver's seat. Threw the glove box back on. I think we're gonna mount the ECU and fuse box under there. So, but the shifter's in, the gauges are in, pedals are in, seat's in, steering's in. So now I think I'm at the point where I need to drill the cab mounts and pull the cab off and final weld all the bottom and put some undercoat on it, and seam seal the inside and kind of get that stuff buttoned up. But yeah, so I think the gauges turned out pretty good. Not too bad considering I was hacking away at them. So let's see what the next video brings. But I think the next video is going to be me pulling the cab off and finishing that up.